It's been a busy week in the Inland Northwest, so let's get you caught up with the KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for being here with us. Over the next half hour, we'll take a look back at some of the news you might have missed from the past week. So let's get started with one of the biggest stories from the Inland Northwest.
Senators debated the bill for more than an hour before voting on it and passing it. It now goes to the House for debate. Proponents in the Senate say law enforcement should not have any reason to hide their identities. The bill passed right along party lines. Every Democrat voted for it and no Republicans supported it. Republicans argued officers should have the right to protect their identities from protesters who have harassed officers once they found out who they are. The bill still needs to pass out of the House, but it has support there, and the governor has said he will sign it.
I want to stand very firmly on this bill and make a statement that in America and in Washington state, we will not accept secret police, and we will not accept any institution that hinders our ability to solve crimes and make sure that we have public safety institutions whole and communities safe.
The reason that they are currently wearing masks is they were threatened personally. Them and their families were threatened personally. That's why they're wearing masks. They're not wearing masks because they're secret police.
Facial coverings would still be allowed for undercover operations, also for SWAT operations if that mask is part of protective gear. The bill has an emergency clause in it, which means as soon as the governor signs it, it would go into effect. In Olympia, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
4 days after the shooting and killing of Minneapolis ICU nurse Alex Preddy, hundreds in Spokane gathered together to protest what they say was an unlawful killing.
Well, I think it affects us all.
Attendee Link Miles says he's happy to be a part of something bigger than himself. He says the news of Preddy being killed by a Border Patrol agent shocked him.
This is, action taken by our government, and we all need to be showing our support and for what we believe is right.
Hundreds of people gathered at Riverfront Park with signs in support of Preddy and against federal agents. Folks marched their way to the courthouse where 3 people spoke kind words about him. They marched back to the park where the group slowly separated from there. But Leslie Jones says the march ending doesn't take away from its importance.
It's important to be here because we need to stand up for what's right.
As those in attendance leave downtown with their signs, Jones hopes the march shows Spokane residents care about the death of Preddy, no matter how far from Eastern Washington it was.
Because all of our voices matter. It doesn't matter how far or how close you are to what happened. All of us together matter and our voice matters. And if we can all work together, we can make a change. And that's why we're all here.
Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Federal prosecutors withdrew their request to keep Brenna Doyle, the woman accused of threatening to kill an FBI agent and his family, in custody. And a judge said this morning that's likely the only reason she didn't leave the courtroom with U.S. Marshals. According to a now unsealed affidavit, 18-year-old Doyle wasn't involved with protests in Minnesota. The affidavit says Minneapolis protesters broke into 2 FBI vehicles and stole weapons, tactical gear, and FBI documents, including personal contact information like phone numbers and home addresses. That information was posted online, and court records say Doyle used it to call the agent to threaten to kill him and his family. Records say 10 to 15 FBI agents got threatening phone calls, but Doyle's were determined to be, quote, true threats rather than harassment. The affidavit shows she told the agent his daughter was dead and he was dead, saying, quote, I will kill you myself. She left 3 threatening messages within 2 minutes, causing the agent to contact his daughter's school to notify them of the threat to her life. Federal prosecutors originally wanted Doyle to remain in custody, partly due to criminal history, which includes 3 misdemeanors after a July 2025 arrest and a February 2025 felony conviction for attempting to elude a police vehicle. But this morning, they withdrew a detention request. Doyle will be on probation and only allowed to leave her home for work, legal or court-ordered processes, and medical treatment until her next court appearance. Her next hearing is scheduled for February 9th in Minnesota. Reporting at the courthouse, Caitlin Galloway, KREM 2 News.
As we go to break, here's a check of your weekend forecast. Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Week in Review. Each weekend, we walk you through headlines from the past week in the Inland Northwest.
3 teens are being charged as adults after they allegedly kidnapped, robbed, and assaulted a 19-year-old in these apartments right here behind me.
Aiden Stoddard, Sean Bowers-Schaefer, and Juelz Ocampo faced a Spokane County commissioner for an incident that allegedly took place at the corner of Mayfair Street and Mayfair Court in North Spokane. Court documents show a 19-year-old told Spokane police he was lured to an apartment on Mayfair Street where he was later dragged inside, tied to a chair, and beat. He says a knife was held to his throat and guns were pointed at his head and body. The victim told police he was also stripped of his clothes. He says the defendants took things like his Air Jordans, jacket, and BB gun. Documents show videos and pictures of the incident were sent through social media to the victim's ex-girlfriend. She told police she heard a voice message from a teen girl involved in the incident that said, quote, he was fake banging and an AR-15 was pointed at the face. Eventually, the victim was led out of the apartment and let go down the street after the defendants told him not to call the police. Detectives determined probable cause to charge all 3 teens with first-degree kidnapping, first-degree robbery, and second-degree assault. The Spokane County Prosecuting Office clarified that although all the defendants are under 18, they are being tried as adults due to the first-degree kidnapping charge.
2 other teenage girls were arrested in connection to this incident. Now they will face a judge in juvenile court next week. In Spokane, Christian Garza, KREM 2 News.
Well, Spokane police say there is still an active investigation ongoing after they responded to a shooting where a woman was shot in front of a residence in North Spokane on East Decatur Avenue. Now, Spokane police and the Major Crimes Unit responded to this call around 3 p.m. They say a neighbor called in this shooting. And again, that adult female was reported shot in front of a residence. We have since been told by Spokane police that that female went to the hospital and is in stable condition. Now, when I arrived on scene, Spokane police were knocking on doors to neighbors in the area, as well as taking photos of a specific home, a blue home in the area that also had tape wrapped around the residence, red tape. Now, since then, that tape has been taken down, and Spokane police say no arrests have been made at this time, and there is no current threat to the public. Now, Spokane police urge anyone that has more information on this investigation to call Crime Check. For now, I'm reporting in North Spokane. Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
As true crime continues to grow in popularity as a genre, you might see movies or books surrounding high-profile criminals like Brian Kohberger or Lori Vallow Daybell. However, a newly proposed bill making its way through the Idaho legislature aims to make sure those criminals don't see a cent.
It was pretty outdated.
Bill sponsor Senator Tammy Nichols says the nearly 50-year-old law is loosely connected to other states' Son of Sam law. Currently, if someone earns money from telling their story through things like scripted media, then whatever is earned has to be paid to the state. The money then is put into an escrow account for victims. Currently, there is a 5-year time limit, and if no one claims the money goes back to the person who committed the crime.
I don't think there's anyone out there that's thinking, oh yeah, criminals should be able to make money off of their crimes and victims shouldn't be entitled to any of that.
Senator Nichols says this proposed bill would essentially be the same as the current law. However, it would expand the list of things prisoners can earn money from and clarify language that protects prisoners' First Amendment rights.
It doesn't say that, nobody can do any books or movies or documentaries or podcasts or anything. It's just simply going off of the monetary gains that might happen because of that.
Representative Elaine Price from Coeur d'Alene co-sponsored the bill. She sent KREM 2 a statement saying, in part, I co-sponsored the bill because of the effects of the crime committed in Moscow has had on many members of my community. Nothing can bring their loved ones back, but if we can help minimize the effect the crime had on these families, I'm 100% on board. Senator Nichols says the proposed bill also extends the 5-year deadline to access these funds with a court order, just to make sure victims have enough time. This proposed bill does not work retroactively, so documentaries or media made before the passing of this bill do not fall under these new regulations.
I just see it as being more of a proactive approach because we are in a different time period than we were in 1978 or 1988 or 1998.
The bill was just introduced to the Judiciary and Rules Committee yesterday and will be discussed further sometime next week. If this bill is turned into law, it goes into effect starting on July 1st of this year. In the newsroom, Christian Garza, KREM 2 News.
Thanks for joining KREM 2 News this weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Right now, we're taking a look back at some of the news stories from the past week.
It's an end of an era for Coeur d'Alene Fire. With 100 years of combined service, Fire Chief Tom Greif and Deputy Chief Sales and DeRuyter are now laying the framework for the next generation of fire leaders.
It's been about the same because we're all old.
Some Coeur d'Alene fire leaders are closing the office door for the last time.
We are our own identity. Tradition's important because you get to carry it and hand it off to the new folks coming in.
Today, the three look back on accomplishments they are leaving behind.
The fact that we were able to train up a whole slew of paramedics. When we started here, there was just 3 of us.
During their tenure, the department expanded its paramedic staff from 3 to 33, launched a K-9 program, passed a $16.4 million bond, built a new training facility, and grew its services alongside Coeur d'Alene's rising population.
We designed it after a lot of the apartment buildings that are coming in town with the stairwells and that type of thing. And, we call it the Swiss Army knife of the training facility.
All 3 have worked together in North Idaho since the late 90s and have served together at Coeur d'Alene Fire since 2004. In their final months of the job, they look to support the next group of leaders.
I hope that they maintain the servant leadership, the servant heart, and they keep striving for excellence.
City Council has already approved a restructuring plan aimed at smoothing that transition.
Is this model sustainable for the next leadership group that comes in? Is it a model that matches industry standards? And so we started looking at the need for that assistant chief that we're creating, so there's a clear chain of command.
Greif, DeRuyter, and Sales tell me the next leaders will have to tackle the same issue they saw.
Understanding what the actual demands are and being able to quantify them in order to make the best decisions you can.
They also described they will need to lead the community as it continues to heal from the Canfield Mountain ambush.
They say it's in your blood. And when you pick a profession like this, we don't consider it a job. It's literally a way of life for us.
Now, some department leaders have already retired earlier this month. And for now, Chief Greif is evaluating those next leaders. I'm reporting in Coeur d'Alene, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Crumbling bricks and leaks in the ceiling.
And the systems are beyond their lifespan.
Are just a few infrastructure problems staff with the East Valley School District says need to be solved. Both its middle school and high school were constructed more than 50 years ago. Besides a significant redesign in the 1980s, those buildings have stayed the same. An issue with East Valley High School alum Ben Wick.
And I walk into the high school and it's like, holy cow, it hasn't changed since I was there. And then I was talking with my parents, and my dad actually went to East Valley School District, and the high school is very similar to when he was in high school.
Wick's the co-chair for the Yes for East Valley campaign. It's a group organized to get the word out on a $220 million proposed bond that's on February's ballot. It would include replacing the East Valley High School and Middle School and make infrastructure improvements across its other schools. The last bond approved by the community for the district was more than 30 years ago. The district anticipates the bond amount meeting $1.96 per $1,000. The district has a 4-year capital levy at 73 cents per thousand that's expiring at the end of this year. That means the difference in what taxpayers would pay if the bond passes is $1.23 per thousand. If it passes, it wouldn't go into effect until January of 2027.
There's a cost of doing business, and then there's also a cost of not doing business.
Superintendent Brian Talbot says the bond is a source of funding the district needs now more than ever.
There's never a good time to run a bond or to run a tax measure. However, there are times when it's absolutely necessary, and that's where we are.
Ballots have already been mailed out. The deadline to vote is February 10th, and the bond requires a 60% passing vote to go through. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News, a week in review. I hope you're having a great weekend. Let's get back to one more story you might have missed this past week.
you talk about Eastern Washington football, it's nearly impossible not to mention Cooper Kupp, a four-time All-American, Walter Payton Award winner, and the all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns in the school's history. In the NFL, not only did Kupp win a Super Bowl, he was also the game's MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. We joke that, we go down to other states to recruit and we ask how much they know about Eastern Washington. And we say, well, we say red turf Cooper Kupp.
That's Mark Anderson, Eastern's offensive coordinator and associate head coach. He says Kupp has long been an example to point to on the recruiting trail, but certainly not the only one. Efton Chisholm III was also a prolific pass catcher for Eastern, finishing his career second only to Kupp in all-time receptions and receiving yards. Although he went undrafted, he fought his way onto the roster for the Patriots, and on February 8th, the former Eags will square off in Super Bowl 60.
Your reactions to the fact that you have two former Eagle wide receivers set to play against each other in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, obviously awesome for the football program and the university, and it's such a cool deal that, and especially those two guys, like how they've earned it.
Aside from the pride of having two former players in this year's Super Bowl, Anderson says it's a big deal for the university in terms of exposure and a helpful tool when it comes to attracting prospective players to Roos Field.
But I think it gives you, a little bit of actual evidence to say, hey, look at these guys. One was a draft pick and one was an undrafted guy. And but regardless, they both went from here and fulfilled their dreams of playing in the league.
Anderson says he grew up a Seahawks fan, and while that's where his NFL loyalties lie, he'll be proudly pulling for both former Eagles on Super Bowl Sunday.
Keep it here for more news and weather updates throughout the weekend. And don't forget, you can watch our latest newscasts anytime on your schedule on KREM 2+. Download and watch right now for free. I'm Cody Proctor. Thank you for watching KREM 2 News Week in Review.